Commander Verk of the Corvani Empire stood on the observation deck of his warship, the Iron Fang, and watched the battle unfold below. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he tried to understand what he was seeing. It made no sense. None of it made any sense at all. The Corvani were the greatest warriors in the galactic arm. This was known by everyone. For 3,000 years they had conquered world after world. Their soldiers were bred for combat. Each one stood 8 feet tall with thick scales that could stop most projectile weapons. Their claws could tear through metal. Their strength was legendary. And yet down on the surface of Theta Prime, he watched his soldiers die. The enemy was a species called the Vexari. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells and sharp mandibles. They had invaded Theta Prime 3 cycles ago, killing the colonists there. The Corvani Empire had sent 2,000 of their best warriors to take the planet back. It should have been easy. The Vexari were not particularly strong or smart. They just had numbers. Millions of them swarmed across the planet's surface. Verk had expected to lose some soldiers, perhaps 100, maybe 200 if the fighting was very hard. But as he watched the battle through the observation screens, he saw his warriors falling by the hundreds. The Vexari were everywhere. They came in waves that never stopped. Every time the Corvani killed 1,000 of them, 10,000 more appeared. His communications officer turned to him with fear in her eyes. "Commander, General Torax reports that the Western Line has collapsed. He is requesting immediate evacuation." Verk felt something he had never felt before in battle. He felt doubt. "How many have we lost?" 800 confirmed dead, Commander. Another 300 wounded. More than half his force gone in just 6 hours of fighting. This was impossible. This was shameful. The Corvani did not lose battles like this. "Tell the general to hold his position," Verk said, even though he knew it was hopeless. "We will send reinforcements from orbit." But there were no reinforcements to send. He had committed everything to this battle, certain of victory. Now he was watching defeat unfold before his eyes. Then something strange happened. A small ship appeared on his sensors. It was not Corvani. It was not Vexari either. The design was unknown to him, but the computer identified it after a moment. Human, a Terran vessel. Verk had heard of the humans. They were a young species from a small planet on the far side of the galaxy. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel about a century ago. They were weak creatures physically. Soft skin, no claws, no natural armor. The Corvani had dismissed them as irrelevant. They were not worth conquering. They had nothing of value. "What are they doing here?" Verk asked. "Unknown, Commander. They are hailing us." "Put them through." A human face appeared on the screen. It was a female, Verk thought, though humans all looked the same to him. She had dark skin and short hair, and her eyes were steady and calm. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Relentless," she said. "We picked up your distress signal and came to offer assistance. Our sensors show you are engaged with hostile forces on the surface. We have a combat team ready to deploy if you require aid." Verk almost laughed. Humans, helping the Corvani in battle. The very idea was absurd. "We do not need help from your kind, human. Our warriors are more than capable of handling this situation." "With respect, Commander, your warriors are dying down there. I can see it on my sensors. You have lost over half your force in 6 hours and the enemy numbers are not decreasing. At this rate, you will have no soldiers left by morning." The truth of her words stung like poison. Verk wanted to end the communication and ignore this insult. But he was a commander, and his duty was to his soldiers, not to his pride. He looked at the screens showing the battle. He watched another squad of his finest warriors get overwhelmed by the endless swarm of Vexari. "What are you offering?" he asked finally. 50 of my soldiers, combat specialists. They have experience fighting swarm-type enemies. Let us help you." 50 soldiers. Verk had lost 800 and this human thought 50 could make a difference. But what choice did he have? His warriors were dying, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "Very well," he said. "Deploy your soldiers, but they will fight under my command." "Agreed, Chen out." Verk watched the human ship descend toward the planet's surface. He expected nothing from them. 50 soft-skinned creatures against millions of Vexari. They would die in minutes, but at least their deaths would buy his remaining soldiers some time. He was wrong. The human dropship landed behind the Corvani defensive line. Verk had cameras on the ground, and he watched as the humans emerged. They were exactly as he expected. Small, weak-looking things in strange armor. They carried weapons he did not recognize. They moved in a tight formation, their movements precise and coordinated in a way that seemed almost mechanical. The human commander, a male with pale skin and a shaved head, approached General Torax. The Corvani general towered over him, standing almost 3 feet taller. Torax looked at the humans with obvious contempt. "These are your reinforcements," Torax said. "These soft creatures, they will not survive 5 minutes against the swarm." The human commander did not seem bothered by this. "Just tell us where you need us, General. Let us worry about surviving." Torax pointed toward the eastern flank where the Vexari pressure was strongest. "Go there. Hold that line if you can." The human nodded once, then turned to his soldiers and made several hand signals. The 50 humans moved out immediately, their formation spreading into something Verk had never seen before. They did not march in ranks like proper warriors. They moved in small groups of 5, spreading out across the terrain, using every piece of cover they could find. "They scatter like prey animals," Verk observed. "They have no discipline." But his tactical officer, a young female named Kira, was studying the humans with great interest. "I am not so sure, Commander. Look at how they position themselves. Each group can support the others with overlapping fields of fire. They are not scattering. They are creating a web." Verk watched more closely. The humans reached their assigned position and stopped. They did not charge at the enemy like Corvani warriors would. Instead, they dug into the ground. They built small barriers from rocks and debris. They set up their weapons on stable platforms. And then the Vexari came. A wave of thousands of the insect creatures surged toward the human position. Verk expected to see the humans overwhelmed in seconds. Instead, he heard a sound he had never heard before, a continuous roar of weapon fire that did not stop. The human guns spat out projectiles at an incredible rate, far faster than any Corvani weapon. The front ranks of the Vexari simply dissolved. Thousands of them fell in the first few seconds. But more kept coming. The Vexari did not care about losses. They just kept charging. Verk waited for the moment when the wave would reach the human line and wash over them. That moment never came. The humans kept firing. Their weapons never seemed to run out of ammunition. When one group had to reload, the others covered them. They called out positions to each other, shifting their fire to wherever the pressure was greatest. And something else was happening too. Verk saw humans throwing small objects that exploded among the Vexari with devastating effect. He saw other humans firing weapons that shot beams of light, cutting through dozens of enemies at once. "What are those weapons?" Verk asked. "Unknown, Commander. Our database has no record of them." For an hour the humans held their position against wave after wave of Vexari. They did not move. They did not retreat. They just kept killing. When the battle finally paused, Verk checked his screens. The human force had suffered 3 wounded, 0 dead. They had killed an estimated 40,000 Vexari. Verk's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. This was impossible. This had to be some kind of trick. "Get me the human commander on the surface," he ordered. A moment later, the shaved-headed human appeared on his screen. He was breathing hard, and there was green Vexari blood splattered across his armor, but his voice was calm. "Commander Verk, how can I help you?" "How did you do that?" Verk asked. "How did 50 of your soldiers hold against that many enemies?" The human smiled. It was a strange expression that showed his teeth. "We have experience with this kind of fighting, Commander. Swarm enemies are actually our specialty. Would you like us to continue?" Verk looked at his tactical displays. His own forces had suffered another 100 casualties during the same hour. The humans had lost nobody. The choice was obvious, even if it wounded his pride to admit it. "Yes," he said, "continue, and human, tell me your name." "Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb, sir. 1st Terran Rapid Response Battalion." "Lieutenant Colonel Webb, you and your soldiers have earned my respect today. That is not something I give easily." Webb nodded. "Thank you, Commander, but the battle is not over yet. With your permission, I would like to suggest a different strategy, one that might end this fight much faster." Verk leaned forward. 6 hours ago, he would have rejected any suggestion from a human. Now, he was eager to hear what this strange warrior had to say. "I am listening." General Torax watched the human soldiers with a mixture of confusion and growing respect. He had fought in 17 campaigns across the galaxy. He had faced enemies of every kind, from the massive Grandar War beasts to the technologically superior Centauri. He had never seen anything like these humans. It was not their strength. They were weak physically. A single Corvani warrior could tear any of them apart in close combat. It was not their armor, which seemed thin and inadequate compared to Corvani battle plates. It was something else, something harder to define. The human commander, Webb, was crouched behind a broken wall, studying a small device in his hands. Around him, his soldiers were preparing for what he called Phase 2 of their strategy. They moved with quiet efficiency, checking weapons, distributing supplies, communicating in low voices or with hand signals. "Your soldiers do not speak much," Torax observed. Webb looked up from his device. "They do not need to. They know their jobs. Every soldier knows exactly what every other soldier will do in any situation. We have trained together for years. We have fought together. We are like one organism with 50 bodies." Torax found this hard to understand. Corvani warriors valued individual glory. The greatest honor was to kill the most enemies in personal combat. Each warrior fought for their own reputation, their own legend. The idea of fighting as a single organism seemed strange and somehow weak. But the results spoke for themselves. These 50 humans had killed more Vexari in 1 hour than his remaining 800 Corvani had killed in 6. "Tell me about this Phase 2, Torax said. Webb pulled up a holographic map on his device. It showed the Vexari positions across the continent. "Right now, we are playing defense. We are holding a line, killing wave after wave of enemies. That is fine if you have unlimited ammunition and unlimited time. We do not. Eventually, they will wear us down." "This is obvious," Torax said. "But what choice do we have? There are millions of them." "We do not need to kill millions of them," Webb said. "We need to kill one." He pointed to a location on the map deep in Vexari territory. "The Vexari are not random. They have a hive structure. Everything they do is controlled by a queen. She is their brain. Kill her and the whole swarm falls apart. The drones will not know what to do. They will become confused, uncoordinated. Easy targets." Torax studied the map. The Queen's location was nearly 50 kilometers behind enemy lines, surrounded by the densest concentration of Vexari on the planet. "You are suggesting we attack through all of that?" "Not attack, infiltrate. A small team moving fast and quiet. Get in, kill the Queen, get out, the battle ends." "That is suicide." Webb smiled that strange tooth-showing expression again. "General, with respect, you do not know what humans are capable of. This is what we do. This is what we are built for." Torax was silent for a long moment. Everything he knew about warfare told him this plan was insane. A direct assault through overwhelming enemy numbers to strike at a single target. No Corvani commander would ever approve such a thing. It violated every principle of honorable combat. But the humans had already shown him that their way of fighting was different, and it worked. "How many soldiers do you need?" Torax asked. 12. 12 against millions. 12 is plenty, more would just slow us down. Torax shook his massive head. "You humans are either very brave or very foolish." "We are both, General. That is kind of our thing." Above the battlefield, Commander Verk had been listening to this conversation. When Webb finished explaining his plan, Verk contacted him directly. "Lieutenant Colonel Webb, I must admit I find your proposal difficult to accept. It goes against everything I know about warfare." "I understand, Commander, but consider your alternatives. You can continue fighting a defensive battle that you are slowly losing. You can call for reinforcements that may not arrive in time, or you can let us try something different. If we fail, you have lost 12 soldiers. If we succeed, you win the war." Verk thought about this. He thought about the 800 warriors he had already lost. He thought about the shame of returning to the Empire with a defeat on his record. And he thought about these strange, soft-skinned creatures who fought in ways he had never imagined. "Very well," he said. "You have my authorization, but I want to send some of my warriors with you, not to fight with you, but to observe. I need to understand how you do what you do." Webb nodded. "That is acceptable, but they must follow our orders during the mission. No deviating from the plan, no charging into glorious battle. If they cannot do that, they will get themselves and us killed. I will select warriors who can control themselves, 2 of them." "Good, we move at nightfall." As darkness fell over Theta Prime, Webb assembled his team. 12 humans and 2 Corvani observers, a young warrior named Krev and an older female named Sola who was known for her patience and discipline. They gathered in a small hollow behind the defensive line, away from the noise of the ongoing battle. Webb addressed his team quietly. "You all know the mission. 50 kilometers through hostile territory. Target is the Queen. Speed and stealth are our weapons. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. If we do it right, they will never know we were there until it is too late." One of the humans, a small female with red hair and covered in weapons, raised her hand. "Rules of engagement if we are detected. Fight through and keep moving. Do not stop. Do not hold ground. This is not a defensive operation. If we slow down, we die. Keep moving forward no matter what." The Corvani observer Krev shifted uncomfortably. This went against every instinct he had. Corvani warriors did not run from enemies. They stood and fought. That was the way of honor. But Sola, the older warrior, placed a restraining hand on his arm. "We are here to learn, not to fight," she reminded him. "Watch, listen, understand." The team moved out. What followed was the strangest military operation Krev had ever witnessed. The humans did not march. They flowed across the terrain like water, finding paths that Krev would never have noticed. They communicated without speaking, using only hand signals and occasional clicks. They seemed to know exactly where every Vexari patrol was before they even appeared. 3 times in the first hour, Webb raised his fist, and the entire team froze instantly. Each time, a Vexari patrol passed within meters of them without detecting their presence. The humans had become invisible, blending into the shadows and the terrain in ways that should have been impossible. Krev realized he had been wrong about these creatures. He had thought their scattering formation was a sign of fear. Now he understood it was something else entirely. It was hunting behavior. These humans were not prey animals. They were predators. By midnight, the team had covered 30 kilometers. They were moving through a dense forest that provided good cover but limited visibility. Webb called a brief halt in a small clearing to check their position and let the team rest. Krev watched the humans during this pause. They did not sit down or relax their guard. Each one took up a position facing outward, watching the forest around them. They drank water and ate small portions of food without taking their eyes off their surroundings. Even at rest, they were alert. "How do you maintain this level of awareness?" Krev asked Webb quietly. "My own warriors would be exhausted by now." "Training," Webb said simply. "We have been doing this since we were children. Human military training starts at 18 standard years, but most of us were learning these skills long before that. Hunting, tracking, surviving, it is in our nature." "In your nature, but humans are prey animals. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons." Webb looked at him with those strange flat eyes that humans had. "We were never prey, warrior. We were always the hunters. We just did not look like it." He pulled out his map device again, checking their route. "We are making good time. Another 4 hours and we will reach the Queen's position. But the next section is the most dangerous. The Vexari concentration gets very thick around the hive. We will need to slow down and be even more careful." Sola, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "The Vexari can sense vibrations. Heavy footsteps alert them. This is why our warriors struggle against them in large numbers. We are too big, too loud." Webb nodded. "We know. Human infantry learned to move lightly a long time ago. It is called tactical footwork. We train for years to control our movements, to place our feet exactly right. Every step is intentional." He demonstrated, moving across the clearing in a way that seemed almost supernatural. His feet made no sound at all, even on the dried leaves that covered the ground. The other humans watched without reaction, as if this was completely normal to them. Krev tried to imitate the movement. His heavy Corvani feet crunched loudly with every step. Sola did better, but still made far more noise than the humans. "It is not about being light," Webb explained. "It is about being precise. You must feel the ground before you put your weight on it. Roll from heel to toe. Avoid anything that will crack or shift. It takes years to master." The team moved out again, entering the dense forest. Webb had been right about the difficulty. Vexari patrols were everywhere now, and the gaps between them were getting smaller. Several times, the team had to wait motionless for long minutes while swarms of the insect creatures passed nearby. Krev found himself holding his breath during these moments. The Vexari were close enough to touch. If they were detected now, there would be no escape. But the humans remained perfectly calm, perfectly still, like statues carved from stone. Then everything went wrong. A Vexari scout emerged from underground directly beneath one of the human soldiers, a young male named Tors. There was no warning. One moment the ground was solid, the next moment an insect creature was bursting up through it, its mandibles reaching for the human's leg. What happened next occurred in less than 2 seconds, but Krev would remember every detail for the rest of his life. Tors did not scream or panic. He simply dropped straight down, letting his body fall away from the attacking mandibles. As he fell, his hand found his combat knife and drew it in a single fluid motion. He hit the ground and rolled, coming up behind the Vexari scout. Before the creature could make a sound to alert others, Tors drove his knife through the joint in its neck, severing its neural connection. The Vexari collapsed without making a sound. Tors was back on his feet in an instant, blade already cleaned and sheathed, moving to catch up with the team. The whole event had taken less time than Krev needed to process what he was seeing. "How?" Krev whispered. "How did he do that?" The human next to him, a stocky female named Rodriguez, glanced over. Tors was Special Forces before he joined the battalion. Close combat is his specialty. He has killed enemies with his bare hands before, many times. With bare hands, against armored creatures. Armor has gaps. Humans are good at finding gaps. They kept moving. 2 hours later, they reached the edge of the hive. The Vexari queen had built her nest in a massive structure of hardened secretions and harvested materials. It rose from the ground like a small mountain, surrounded by millions of drone workers and soldier casts. The entrance was a huge opening at the base, constantly swarmed with Vexari moving in and out. Webb gathered the team in a concealed position overlooking the hive. There it is. The queen will be in the central chamber, deepest part of the structure. We have two options. Option 1, we fight our way through the entrance, dealing with whatever we encounter. Option 2, we find another way in. Another way in? Sola asked. The structure appears solid. One of the humans, a thin male with many scars on his face, pulled out a different device and studied it. Ventilation shafts. The hive needs air circulation. There are smaller openings higher up, less guarded. I am reading one about 200 meters up the eastern face. Can we climb it? Webb asked. It will be difficult. The surface is irregular, but yes, it can be climbed. Webb turned to the Corvani observers. This is where you stay behind. The climb is too dangerous for those unfamiliar with our techniques. You will wait here and observe what happens. When the queen dies, you will know. Krev wanted to argue. He wanted to prove that Corvani warriors could do anything humans could do, but Sola stopped him again. We are observers, she said firmly, not participants. We watch and learn. Webb nodded respectfully. Sergeant Martinez will stay with you to provide communication. The rest of us are going in. 11 humans moved toward the hive. Krev and Sola watched them begin to climb. The humans climbed like insects themselves, finding handholds and footholds that Krev could not even see from his position. They moved up the face of the hive in silence, dark shapes against the darker structure. Occasionally, a Vexari patrol would pass along the surface, and the humans would freeze, becoming invisible against the textured wall. It took them an hour to reach the ventilation shaft. One by one, they disappeared inside. Martinez, the human left behind with the observers, monitored the situation on his communication device. They are inside, he reported quietly, moving through the internal passages. So far, no contact. What happens if they are discovered? Krev asked. Then things get loud, but do not worry. These are the best soldiers humanity has. If anyone can do this, they can. Time passed slowly. Krev watched the hive, waiting for some sign of what was happening inside. The swarm of Vexari continued their endless movements, completely unaware of the danger in their midst. Then suddenly, everything changed. A sound erupted from deep within the hive. It was not like any sound Krev had ever heard. It was a screaming, keening wail that seemed to shake the very air. The millions of Vexari around the hive stopped moving. They simply stopped, frozen in place like machines that had been switched off. That is the queen, Martinez said, his voice tight. They found her. The wailing continued for several more seconds, then cut off abruptly. In the silence that followed, the Vexari began to move again, but not in their coordinated swarm patterns. They stumbled and wandered, colliding with each other, moving in random directions. Some of them simply fell over and did not get up. It is working, Sola breathed. The swarm is collapsing. Martinez was listening to his communication device, nodding. Queen is confirmed dead. Team is exfiltrating through an alternate route. They will meet us at the extraction point in 1 hour. Krev stared at the chaos unfolding before him. Millions of Vexari, suddenly rendered helpless by the death of a single creature. 11 humans had done what 1,000 Corvani warriors could not. They had won the war in a single night. How? He asked, the word escaping before he could stop it. How are you capable of such things? Martinez looked at him, and for a moment his hard soldier's face softened slightly. That is a big question, friend. The short answer is that humans evolved on a very dangerous world. We were not the strongest or the fastest or the toughest, but we survived anyway. We survived by being clever, by working together, and by never, ever giving up. Every challenge we faced made us better at facing the next one. He paused, looking at the dying hive. The galaxy thinks we are weak because we are small and soft, but weakness is not about the body. It is about the spirit. and human spirits do not break easily. By dawn, the battle for Theta Prime was over. With their queen dead, the Vexari swarm disintegrated into chaos. The remaining Corvani forces, guided by human tactical advice, systematically eliminated the confused drones. Within hours, the threat was neutralized. Commander Verk descended to the surface for the first time since the battle began. He walked through fields littered with Vexari corpses, past defensive positions that had been defended to the last, until he reached the human command post. Lieutenant Colonel Webb was waiting for him, along with his surviving team. They had lost 2 soldiers in the assault on the hive. Their bodies had been recovered and were being prepared for transport back to human space. Verk stopped before Webb and did something he had never done before in his entire military career. He bowed. Not a slight inclination of the head, but a full formal bow of respect that Corvani reserved for only the greatest warriors. "Lieutenant Colonel Webb," he said, "on behalf of the Corvani Empire, I offer our deepest gratitude and respect. You and your soldiers have accomplished what we could not. You have shown us a form of warfare we did not know existed. You have earned honor that will be remembered." Webb accepted the bow with quiet dignity. "Thank you, Commander, but we did not do this alone. Your warriors held the line while we moved into position. Without their sacrifice, we would never have had the opportunity to strike at the Queen. The victory belongs to all of us." Verk rose from his bow. "You are generous in your words, but I have eyes, Lieutenant Colonel. I saw what your soldiers did. 50 humans against millions of enemies. It should have been impossible. And yet you did it." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "I will be making a report to the Corvani High Command. I will tell them everything I witnessed here, and I will make a recommendation that may be unusual." "What kind of recommendation?" "I will recommend that the Corvani Empire formally request a training alliance with the Terran forces. Our warriors are strong, but strength alone was not enough today. We need to learn what you know. We need to understand how you fight, if you are willing to teach us." Webb was silent for a moment. Then he smiled that strange human smile. "I will pass your request to my superiors, Commander. I cannot promise anything, but I believe they will be interested. Humanity has been looking for allies in this galaxy. Perhaps we have found one." Krev, standing nearby with Sola, stepped forward. "Commander, I also have a request. I wish to be assigned to any training program that results from this alliance. I want to learn the human way of warfare. I want to understand what I witnessed here." Verk nodded slowly. "Your request is noted, warrior. If this alliance comes to pass, you will be among the first selected." He turned back to Webb. "Lieutenant Colonel, I have one more question if you will permit it." "Of course." "Your soldiers, the ones who died in the hive, they knew the risks. They knew they might not return. Why did they go anyway?" Webb's expression changed, becoming more serious. "Because that is what we do. We are soldiers. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We fight so that others do not have to. And when necessary, we die so that others can live. Every human soldier knows this from the moment they take the oath. We do not fear death. We only fear failing in our duty." Verk was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "The Corvani have a saying. True warriors are not those who seek glory, but those who serve their people. I always thought we understood what that meant. Now I realize we did not, but perhaps with your help we can learn." He extended his clawed hand in the human gesture he had seen them use. Webb took it, and they shook. It was the beginning of something new, something that would change the galaxy forever. 6 months later, the first class of Corvani warriors arrived at the Terran military training facility on Mars. There were 200 of them, selected from the best the Empire had to offer. They had volunteered for this program, eager to learn the secrets of human warfare. They were not prepared for what awaited them. Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez stood before them in the main training yard, looking impossibly small compared to the towering alien warriors. She was in her 50s, with gray hair and a face lined by years of hard service. She had fought in 12 campaigns and trained thousands of human soldiers. Now she had a new challenge. "Welcome to hell," she said, her voice carrying across the yard without amplification. "For the next 6 months you will learn to think like humans, move like humans, and fight like humans. This will not be easy. In fact, it will be the hardest thing you have ever done. Many of you will want to quit. Some of you will hate me before the first week is over. That is fine. I do not need you to like me. I need you to learn." Krev stood in the front row, his 4 eyes fixed on this small human who spoke to them without any sign of fear or deference. Beside him was Sola, who had also been selected for the program. They had been waiting for this moment since Theta Prime. "The first thing you need to understand," Vasquez continued, "is that everything you know about fighting is wrong. Not bad necessarily, just wrong for the kind of warfare we are going to teach you. You have been trained to fight as individuals, to seek personal glory, to meet your enemies face to face and overpower them with superior strength. That works fine when your enemies are also fighting that way. But the galaxy is full of enemies who do not follow those rules. Swarm enemies, guerrilla fighters, opponents who use deception and misdirection. Against those enemies, traditional Corvani tactics will get you killed." She began to pace before them, her movements precise and controlled. "Humans learned a long time ago that the best fighter does not always win the battle. The best team does. We are going to teach you how to be part of a team, how to communicate without speaking, how to move without being seen, how to think 3 steps ahead of your enemy, and most importantly, how to put your mission above your personal glory." One of the Corvani warriors, a massive male named Goreth, growled deep in his throat. "This sounds like cowardice, hiding, sneaking, avoiding honorable combat." Vasquez turned to face him, completely unintimidated by his size. "What is your name, warrior?" "Goreth of the Iron Claw clan." "Well, Goreth of the Iron Claw clan, let me ask you something. At Theta Prime, how many of your people died in honorable combat?" Goreth was silent. "Over 800. That is the number. 800 warriors fighting honorably, dying honorably. And how many humans died using our dishonorable tactics?" Still silence. Two soldiers who volunteered to infiltrate the enemy hive, knowing they might not return. They accomplished what 800 honorable warriors could not. They killed the queen and ended the war. So you tell me, Goreth, which approach is truly honorable? The one that kills more of your own people, or the one that saves them? Goreth did not respond, but Krev saw something change in his expression. Doubt, confusion, the beginning of understanding. Vasquez nodded. "I am not asking you to abandon your honor. I am asking you to think about what honor really means. Is it glory for yourself or victory for your people? Is it how you fight or why you fight? These are questions every human soldier has to answer. Now you will answer them too." She turned to address the whole group again. "Training begins tomorrow at dawn. Today, you will be assigned to squads and given your basic equipment. Human equipment, not Corvani. You will learn to use our weapons, wear our armor, and move at our pace. Any questions?" Sola raised her hand. "Sergeant Major, you said this would be the hardest thing we have ever done. But we are Corvani warriors. We have trained our whole lives. How can your training be harder than what we have already experienced?" Vasquez smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "That is an excellent question, warrior. Let me answer it this way. On Corvani, your training pushes your body to its limits. Here, we are going to push your mind. Physical strength means nothing in the battles we fight. What matters is mental toughness. The ability to stay calm when everything is falling apart. The ability to think clearly when you are exhausted, terrified, and surrounded by enemies. The ability to make the right decision in a split second, knowing that a wrong choice will get your team killed." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Your body is a weapon, but your mind is the warrior who wields it. We are going to forge your minds into something sharper and stronger than any blade, and that process will be painful, very painful. Krev felt a chill run through him despite his thick scales. He had thought he understood what he was getting into. Now he was not so sure. The next morning, training began. The Corvani warriors were divided into squads of 10, each led by a human instructor. Krev's squad was assigned to a quiet human male named Instructor Chen, who explained that they would start with the most basic element of human combat: communication. In your army, Chen said, warriors communicate by shouting orders. Everyone knows their role. Everyone follows the chain of command. Simple and effective as long as everything goes according to plan. But what happens when the plan falls apart? What happens when you cannot shout because the enemy will hear you? What happens when your commander is dead and you have to make decisions on your own? He held up his hands and made a series of quick gestures. This is tactical sign language. Every human soldier learns it. With these signals, a squad can communicate complex orders in complete silence. We can coordinate movements, identify targets, call for support, all without making a sound. He began to teach them the basic signals. It seemed simple at first, but Krev quickly realized how difficult it really was. His large Corvani hands were not designed for subtle movements. He kept confusing similar signals, and he had to learn not just how to make the signs, but how to read them at a distance, often from the corner of his eye while focusing on something else. By the end of the first day, his hands ached and his head hurt from concentration. He had learned perhaps 20 signals. Chen informed them that the complete tactical vocabulary contained over 300. But the sign language was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, the Corvani learned about tactical movement. They learned how to walk without making noise, how to use terrain for cover, how to move as a team while maintaining awareness of each other's positions. They practiced until their muscles screamed with exhaustion, and then they practiced more. They learned about weapons. Human weapons were different from Corvani arms. They were smaller, lighter, and depended on precision rather than power. The Corvani struggled with the small triggers and delicate sighting systems, but they also learned about explosives, about suppressive fire, about the science of ballistics. They learned that a well-placed small round could be more effective than a powerful blast that missed its target. They learned about strategy. Human instructors took them through historical battles, showing how small forces had defeated larger ones through superior tactics. They studied ambushes, feints, deceptions. They learned that the direct approach was often the wrong approach. But the hardest lessons were psychological. In the fourth week, Vasquez gathered all the squads for a special exercise. Tonight, she said, you will experience what we call the Crucible. It is a 48-hour continuous operation designed to push you beyond your limits. You will be tired. You will be hungry. You will be under constant pressure. And you will have to work as teams to complete your objectives. Any warrior who quits will be sent home. Any squad that fails its objectives will be penalized. Any squad that completes all objectives will earn a special commendation. The Crucible was everything Vasquez had promised, and worse. Krev's squad was sent into a harsh desert simulation, tasked with reaching a series of objectives while being hunted by human special forces playing the role of enemies. They had minimal supplies and were not allowed to sleep. Every time they stopped to rest, enemy attacks drove them forward again. By the 20th hour, Krev was more exhausted than he had ever been in his life. His Corvani body was designed for strength, not endurance. Every step was agony. But when he looked at his squad mates, he saw the same exhaustion in their eyes. And he saw something else too. He saw determination. They reached their final objective, a hilltop observation post, just as dawn broke on the second day. The human instructors were waiting for them. They looked tired too, but they were smiling. Well done, Chen said quietly. You completed all objectives. Only 3 squads managed that. You should be proud. Krev wanted to collapse. Instead, he forced himself to stand straight. We worked together, he said, struggling to form words through his exhaustion. Like you taught us. No one quit. No one fell behind. We carried each other when we had to. Chen nodded. That is the lesson. You cannot be a team when things are easy. Anyone can cooperate when they are rested and comfortable. True teamwork only emerges under pressure. Now you know what you are capable of. That knowledge will never leave you. As the months passed, the Corvani warriors changed. They moved differently, communicated differently, thought differently. They were still Corvani, still proud and strong, but they had incorporated something new into themselves, something human. Krev noticed it most clearly during combat simulations. Early in the training, the Corvani squads had been clumsy and uncoordinated. Each warrior still tried to fight as an individual, seeking personal glory. They got in each other's way, failed to support each other, and were consistently defeated by the human training teams. Now it was different. Krev's squad moved like a single creature with 10 bodies. They communicated with hand signals, glances, and an almost telepathic understanding of each other's intentions. They used cover instinctively. They created overlapping fields of fire without being told. They had become something that had never existed before. They had become Corvani who fought like humans. The final examination was a mock battle against a combined force of human soldiers and alien mercenaries. The Corvani training class was divided into two groups, attackers and defenders. Krev's group was assigned to attack a fortified position held by the opposing force. Old Corvani tactics would have called for a direct assault. March forward, absorb casualties, overwhelm the defenders with superior numbers. That was the honorable way, the traditional way. Krev's team did something different. They approached the position at night, using stealth techniques they had practiced for months. They identified the defensive weaknesses through patient observation. They split into smaller units, each with a specific objective. And when the attack began, it was not a single massive charge but a coordinated strike from multiple directions, each unit supporting the others. The defenders never knew what hit them. Within 10 minutes, the position was secured. The Corvani attackers had suffered 0 casualties. Vasquez observed the whole exercise with her arms crossed. When it was over, she addressed the assembled warriors one last time. 6 months ago, you arrived here as traditional Corvani warriors. You believed that strength and courage were all that mattered. You believed that fighting as individuals was the path to glory. You believed that human tactics were cowardly and dishonorable. She paused, looking at each of them in turn. What do you believe now? Gorath, the warrior who had questioned her on the first day, stepped forward. He was not the same warrior he had been. 6 months of human training had changed something fundamental in him. I believe, he said slowly, that true honor lies in protecting those who depend on us. I believe that working together makes us stronger than fighting alone. I believe that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite fear. And I believe that the humans have shown us a better way to serve our people. Vasquez nodded, a small smile on her weathered face. Then my work here is done. You are ready to return to your people and teach them what you have learned, but remember this. What you have learned here is not a replacement for what you already knew. It is an addition. You are still Corvani warriors. You are still strong, still proud, still brave. Now you are also something more. You are warriors who understand that there is more than one path to victory. She saluted them, the human gesture of respect. 200 Corvani warriors saluted back. Krev returned to the Corvani Empire as a different person. He had been assigned to establish a training program for other Corvani warriors, sharing what he had learned from the humans. It was a heavy responsibility, but one he accepted with pride. The first group of new trainees arrived on a cloudy morning, just as Krev himself had arrived at the human facility 6 months before. They were young, eager, and full of the same confidence he had once felt. They looked at him with curiosity. He was a hero now, one of the warriors who had witnessed the battle of Theta Prime and learned the secrets of human warfare. "Welcome to the first Corvani Integrated Combat Training Facility," Krev said, his voice steady. "For the next 6 months, you will learn to fight in ways that your ancestors never imagined. You will struggle. You will doubt. You will be pushed beyond everything you thought you were capable of. And when you emerge, you will be the finest warriors the Corvani Empire has ever produced." He paused, remembering the words of Sergeant Major Vasquez. "The humans have a saying, the only easy day was yesterday. That is your new truth. Every day will be harder than the last. Every challenge will be greater than the one before. And every step you take will bring you closer to becoming something extraordinary." He looked at the young warriors before him and saw echoes of himself in their eyes. They did not understand yet. They could not. But they would learn just as he had learned. "Training begins now," he said. "Let us see what you are made of." As the new trainees began their first exercises, Krev received a message from Commander Verk. The Corvani High Command had approved an expansion of the Human Alliance. Exchange programs were being established. Joint operations were being planned. The relationship between humans and Corvani was growing stronger every day. But more importantly, the message contained a personal note from Lieutenant Colonel Webb, who had been promoted to full colonel after Theta Prime. "Krev," the message read, "I heard you have started training the next generation. That is good. Remember what I told you on that first day. Weakness is not about the body, it is about the spirit. The Corvani spirit has always been strong. Now it is also wise. Together our peoples will face whatever the galaxy throws at us, and together we will prevail. Web out." Krev read the message twice, then saved it in his personal files. He would keep it forever, a reminder of the human who had taught him what true strength really meant. On the training field, a young warrior stumbled during a stealth exercise and made a loud noise. The instructor corrected her firmly but fairly, showing her the proper technique. She tried again. She failed. She tried again. She succeeded. That was the human way. Fall down, get up, try again, never quit, never surrender, never stop fighting. It was the Corvani way too now. The alliance between humans and Corvani grew over the following years. The two species discovered that they complemented each other perfectly. Corvani's strength combined with human tactics created a military force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Together, they defeated threats that neither could have handled alone. And when historians later asked how this alliance began, the answer was always the same. It began on a small planet called Theta Prime, when 50 human soldiers showed 2,000 Corvani warriors what true combat effectiveness looked like. It began when an empire of proud warriors learned to say the hardest words any warrior can say. It began when they asked for help. And it continued, growing stronger with each passing year, because both species understood that the galaxy was vast and dangerous, and that no one could face its challenges alone. The humans called it cooperation. The Corvani called it wisdom. In the end, it did not matter what you called it. What mattered was that it worked. And in the great story of galactic civilization, the partnership between humans and Corvani became one of the brightest chapters. Not because of the battles they won or the enemies they defeated, but because two very different peoples found a way to learn from each other, to respect each other, and to become something greater together than either could have been apart. That was the true victory. That was the legacy of Theta Prime. That was the beginning of something wonderful. And it all started with 50 soldiers, a desperate battle, and a request for training that changed the galaxy forever.